I'm broadcasting from a patio in downtown Norway, Maine. If you're ever in the neighborhood, please check it out or ask me for any recommendations. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the questions that were sent in advance. And I apologize for any background noise. I was hoping it'd be a little bit quieter, but it's not quite as quiet as I had hoped. There's some road traffic going by and a little bit of wind, but hopefully it's not too bad. So I'm going to start with the questions that were sent in advance, and then any questions that you have, please feel free to put them in the chat on YouTube Live. So question one comes from Alana, who said, I read your article about Delicious shutting down. Can you do a comparison of Google Keep and Delicious? I mentioned Google Keep and Delicious as alternatives to or Google Keep and Diigo, sorry. I mentioned those as alternatives to Delicious. One of the most important things to know about the two is that Google Keep is really designed for individual use with sharing of individual bookmarks or individual notes, whereas Diigo is set up for social bookmarking, where your bookmarks can be discovered by others and you can make public groups, whereas in Google Keep it's really an individual note by note, bookmark by bookmark sharing, as opposed to a broad sharing that you can do in Diigo. I like both tools. I use Google Keep for my own bookmarks more often than I do for Diigo, but that said, I use Diigo with students so that I can create groups to keep track of what they're bookmarking. So those are the two options I recommend as alternatives to Delicious if you're still a Delicious user and looking for an alternative. So the next question that I have in advance here came from Heather, who is in search of a website for creation of shape, poems, and word clouds. Do you have any suggestions? So I have four that came to mind right off the bat when I was answering Heather's question. The first one is wordclouds.com. Pretty easy one to remember. There's a bunch of advertising around it, so it might not be the best option depending on the age of your students and and how strict your school filters are. abcia.com has a bunch of word cloud and poetry creation tools. Read Write Think has a great tool called the Word Mover, and the Word Mover can be used to create all kinds of poetry. I really like the Word Mover. That's probably my favorite of all of these options. And the last option, there is a word cloud add-on for Google Documents. So if your kids are already writing their poetry inside of Google Documents and you want to turn that poetry into a word cloud or a shape poem, you can do that with the word cloud generator add-on for Google Docs. But really, my rundown of them, I'd go with Read Write Think's Word Mover first, then I'd look at ABC, then I'd look at the wordclouds.com, and then I'd finally look at word cloud generator for Google Docs. Next question that came in here, I'm just making sure there's questions popping in. Okay, can you download entire folders from Google Drive? I'm changing districts at the end of the year. That question came from Renee. She sent that to me on Twitter over the weekend. And the answer is yes. If you right click on any of the folders in your Google Drive, you can download them as zip files, so you don't have to do it on a case-by-case basis. You can do it, boom, that entire folder into a zip file, and once it's in a zip file, you can put it wherever you want. The other alternative, if you're leaving one Google district and going to another Google district, is to use Google Takeout. You can find it at takeout.google.com, and that will let you take all your data from your one G Suite account and then have it ready to move into your next account when you get your new account from your next school. So if you're going from Google School to Google School, check out Google Takeout. Otherwise, if you're leaving a Google district and you're going to a district that's not a Google Docs Google Suite district, download that as a zip file, right click on your folder, get it as a zip file. Hope that helps you out, Renee, and good luck in your new district. Question 4 comes from Jennifer, who asked, what is the software that you use for instructional videos in your YouTube channel? I get this question probably more than any other question throughout the course of the year. And the tool that I use more than any other is Screencast-O-Matic. You can find it at screencast-o-matic.com. I use the pro version of it, which costs about $20 a year, and it removes the watermark, which is why you probably are wondering what tool do I use. It removes the watermark. The free version puts a watermark on your video, and the free version is not unlimited recording, whereas the pro version is unlimited recording. All right, and the last question I had in advance that seems to appeal to a lot of people is from Tammy, who says, I'm going to be a tech coach next year. I've been following your blog for years, and that's where I get a lot of ideas to share. Well, thanks, Tammy. How do you keep up and keep track of what's new? How do you decide what's worth sharing with other teachers? So there's two questions there, really. How do I keep up and keep track? So I use Feedly. I subscribe to a lot of blogs in Feedly. Go to feedly.com. You can subscribe to a blog's RSS feed. And I actually make folders inside of Feedly. So I have different groupings. I have a grouping for just ed tech. I have a grouping that's more for my social studies and history stuff. So you can do that. Twitter is helpful if you set up if you do the right searches for the right hashtags and you make lists in Twitter. That's also helpful. I have some lists that I make in Twitter of people that I kind of rely on. I also get a lot of press releases. The nature of writing a blog like mine is that I get a lot of press releases from folks, and so that's how I kind of keep up. And I bookmark everything in Google Keep these days. I used to use Evernote, and before that, I used Google Notebook. But I use Google Keep most of the time to keep track of stuff. Then the question of how do I decide what's worth sharing to other teachers? I kind of have a rule of thumb that I spend a lot of time trying out tools, and I feel like if I can't get a handle on the tool in a relatively short amount of time for myself, I'm probably not going to pass it on to another teacher who's probably not as tech savvy. That's kind of my rule of thumb. I kind of look at it and say, am I spending more than 15 or 20 minutes understanding the purpose of this tool? Generally, if the answer to that is yes, if I'm spending a long time trying to figure it out, I'm probably not going to pass it on to other teachers as well. Now, there are some exceptions to that. There are some tools that are hard to learn, but are very much worth learning. Software for designing objects to use in your 3D printer, for example, could take a while. That's worth sharing, though. Sorry for that big truck that just decided to go by right outside where I'm doing this. So that's my general rule of thumb. And before we shut it down, I just want to take a look here on Twitter and see what else is out there. Someone asking about Google's internet safety curriculum. What do I think about it? Well, I think I think anything that gets kids aware of the liabilities and the dangers of being online, I think is good. In my playing of the game that's a part of that curriculum yesterday, I kind of got the sense that it'll be engaging for 5 to 10 minutes, but beyond that, it's not going to be terribly engaging because there's still a heavy reliance on multiple choice questions, even in their curriculum. But I think it's a great option for people who don't know where to start. If you're looking for kind of a playbook, download the 47 or 48 page PDF that Google just published about internet safety, and I think that's a great starting point. You're going to want to add on to it yourself, though. All right. So I don't see any questions popping in the YouTube channel. As always, if you have any questions during the week, feel free to send me an email, richardbyrne@freetechforteachers.com. The ones that have the broadest appeal I use here in Practical EdTech Live. You can also find me on Facebook or on Twitter as well. So thanks, everyone, and I'll see you next week.